So we will go ahead and start. And oh yeah, let's get me up on screen. How's everybody doing? If you're just joining us again, I'll say this is my trip report for Crafts for the Cure 2024. This past weekend, today's Friday. Last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I headed out to Vegas for Crafts for the Cure 2024. So I'm going to do a quick summary of my trip, and if we can manage it here, I will also go ahead and do a little crapsy. And so I just hit the button on that to get the table live, and hopefully the notification goes out for that. Hello, Joe. I watched your trip report yesterday, and pretty good and thorough. I don't know if I can cover much else, but you had your experiences. I guess I had mine. So we'll go ahead and start off with I will say that I didn't originally plan on going this year to Crafts for the Cure. I have had a lot of trips this year to other places for other things. And quite honestly, I was a bit traveled out this year. But my wife took an extended girls' trip to Jamaica, or I keep saying Jamaica, but it was Puerto Rico. She'll love that I said that. She went to Puerto Rico for a girls' trip, and it was kind of extended. And so it made me go, okay, well, I think I need, it's not all guys, but a guy's trip. I need a trip of my own, just kind of by myself. So I decided to go. I decided this too late, apparently, because uh, I went looking for hotels online the week of last week, and that's never a good idea for looking for hotels in Vegas. I could not find anything. Flights for me are okay because, as one of the benefits of my wife's job, we fly standby for nothing. The catch is that it's standby and you may not get a seat. You may go through a few flights before you finally get a seat. You do eventually get there, though. This is the nature of being the spouse or of an airline worker or an airline worker. So our whole family, pretty much, this is how we travel and how we're able to travel as much as we do, minus, of course, the lodging aspect of it. But that's a story for another time. So I get on to try and find lodging, and I cannot find lodging anywhere in Vegas. I'm like, what the hell is going on in Vegas this weekend? Uh, there's got to be something. Later, I found out that it was a NASCAR weekend, and there was a huge music festival going on called When We Were Young. I think 4 stages down across from the Sahara, right off the strip between the Sahara and the interstate, and that huge area they have set up there as a festival music concert venue. And I got to pass by it a few times while I was there, and yes, it was massive. So I think Jacob's Life in Vegas had a little video on his YouTube channel of people lined up the morning of Saturday morning when it started that showed the line like wrapped all the way around the building. It was pretty crazy. So I looked and looked and looked, even tried regular hotel rooms, could not find anything. All my normal hotel apps that I use, I have about 3 different loyalty ones that I stick to. All those were full. All the Caesars properties weren't quite full, but they weren't cheap either. And I just can't see spending $700 plus on a night for a room in Vegas. So, or anywhere for that matter. There may be a few places in the world that I might consider it, but even then, it's kind of painful. So I looked at Airbnb and had a good Airbnb, and then for some reason, I slept on it, and that's a bad idea. And so that one went away, and I found another Airbnb just for Friday night when I was going to be getting there, and could not find anything for Saturday. Again, there's stuff for Saturday, but pricing is way up here, and again, I'm not paying that much just to go. So the place that I did find to Airbnb in was way out, kind of on the outskirts. And I knew that the venue this year for Craps for the Cure was going to be off the strip. And so I knew there was potential for the Ubers and Lyfts, whichever ride share I was going to take, to get expensive. And so I decided this year to rent a car. And that turned out to be one of the greatest decisions. I get a company discount on rental cars with Avis. And so I figured, hey, if I can't find a place to sleep on Saturday night, I'll just crash out in the car. Or by the time I get there, somebody will hook me up, you know. So with faith in hand, I went ahead and booked the Airbnb. Well, my wife said, hey, don't any of your Craps friends have places you can stay, or can they hook you up? Because when she travels for her thing, that's usually how it goes. I'm like, I don't know. And so I haven't been watching John's show enough this year. I kind of slacked off a little bit. Work got busy, and he's on it during my work hours. And I will usually have him in my ear, listening to him. But I've only been this year kind of keeping up periodically. And so I wasn't all completely up on all things Craps for the Cure this year. And so because of that, I didn't know that if you volunteered, there was a little hookup for those folks. And that had to be arranged prior too. But I checked the Discord and went to the Craps for the Cure page on the Discord. And sure enough, there was a post by someone in the Discord about a room being available, a comp room that person had being available. And so I replied back to that message frantically and said, yes, I'll take it. And if it's still available, and then waited and waited. And it was Patty, who goes by, I think, Patty Gads on the Discord. And his other name in some of the forums is Green, White, and Rolled. And so I waited, booked the Airbnb just in case, and then rolled out Friday morning to get on the plane, and I had a reply back. Or actually, I think the night before I had a reply back. And so we communicated back and forth, and that made me go ahead and cancel the Airbnb. And I got some of my money back on that. Well worth staying in a hotel room versus the Airbnb I had, because it was just a bedroom in someone's home. Not too bad. I've done that before, but a hotel room by yourself, always better than somebody's bedroom. So I went ahead and canceled the Airbnb, and crossed my fingers to be able to connect with Patty the next day on Friday once I got into Vegas. So got up nice and bright and early in the morning and caught the first flight, no problem. Seats were available. Got to Dallas and promptly rolled through 3 flights before I got a seat on, I think, the 4th one. And so, excuse me, I had let Patty know that's kind of how the deal goes. And he said, no problem. Just give me a call when you get into town and get situated, and we'll meet up and go check into the hotel room and everything. So I got finally to Vegas in the afternoon. Sort of worked out, because originally if I'd have gotten the second flight on time, I would have gotten there way before check-in, and then had to have figured out what to do for the day, which would probably have been to play craps, and that not that long. It would not have been a good idea. So I got in, I got my rental car, got in the rental car, got everything else situated, and called Patty, and he said, oh great, we're at the Palms, and so just come meet me at the Palms. And so I did that, and met him at the Palms, and lo and behold, there's a whole bunch of other players there at the Palms, of people that I either knew from having met them before, or recognized them from online, or just recognized their names from the different chat mediums that we do. And so I got to meet Blackburn for the first time in person, who literally lives an hour from me. Blackburn and I have tried to hook up and go to Biloxi or somewhere together forever. And every time he messaged me on Discord, or I'll message him like, hey, I'm going over, or hey, whatever, I'm always doing something else that week and already have something scheduled. And so it's been this perpetual near miss of us getting able to hang out together and play and stuff. And so finally, I get to meet Blackburn pre-beard being shaven, which is another story coming up, and got to meet a lot of other people, some of who I'd met before. But again, unbeknownst to me, because I have slacked off on Craps YouTube content myself this year, I've been watching some other stuff on YouTube and then kind of only watching my absolute favorite folks, and I'll keep to myself who those are so I don't offend anybody. But I had been missing some of Big AZ's content. So I've been watching some of Big AZ's stuff, but I didn't know that prior week, all week, Big AZ and the Blue Ridge crew were in town shooting content and meeting up and playing. And so here we are. I think this was probably the last day of their meetup, and some of them were together, just not shooting content, but playing together on the table at the Palms. And so this turned out to be how the comp room became available, because earlier in the week, they had gone to Durango and played at the tables at Durango, and Patty had done pretty well, and his level of play had been great enough to get a comped 2-night stay for the weekend there at Durango. But he already had a comp stay at Palace Station, where the most of them were already staying. So he knew that someone would probably be coming in for Craps of the Cure. He was also sticking around for it. So he posted it up, and I cannot thank him enough for doing that, because it ended up hooking me up with a place to stay for the duration of Craps of the Cure. And great guy, absolutely great guy. He and I got to spend some time in the car, back and forth, transitioning over there to check in, and then back to where we went next. Just a great guy, great to talk to, awesome person to just sit down and have a beer with. Perfect in every way, especially not just the Craps stuff, but everything else too. Great conversation, everything. And I'm all about conversation. So thank you again, Patty, for hooking me up with the room. So we got checked in, and we headed over to Palace Station, where they were all playing, and most of them were staying, and played at the tables a little bit over there. And again, met some more people from the crew, some folks who were going to be staying, and some folks who had just gotten there, just like I had, to be there for Craps of the Cure. And so we played a little bit on the table there, and I didn't go in too big there. I think I bought in for $100. I am a low roller. I will preface the whole conversation with that. I'm a low roller. I always buy in for a small amount, and I do pretty well just hanging in there for a small amount. I get to play on the table, and I usually can spend from 2 to 4 hours on the table without losing it all. And sometimes I lose it all, sometimes I lose a little, sometimes I win. That's just how it goes. But I love this game, and I love the camaraderie of the game. That's one reason why I played, just not just for the winning part of it. So played it safe while we were there, and then we got off the table, and someone, I think it was, it's not going to come to me right now, had access to the VIP room. And so we went to the VIP room, having already got some nice drinks from the waitress, and hung out in the VIP room and chatted for a good while, in probably an hour or so. And that was nice camaraderie to be able to hang out with everybody, get their stories of them coming there, and some of them who'd been there all week, and hear some of what they had been up to all week, and the winning that they had been doing at different places. The story of the ending to Big AZ's week, and how that all went down, and being able to hear that from some of the horses' mouths was pretty neat, especially considering I didn't even know what was going on prior to that. So it worked out pretty well. And so by that time, we were ready. I think I was ready to hang it up and head back to the room and get some sleep. And so that's what I did. I went back to the room, got me some sleep, and then got up the next morning. And I think we were out quite a bit, so I slept in a little bit the next morning. It didn't, the Craps for the Cure didn't start until 10, so I got there right just in time for everything to start off. And I think I walked in, and John was maybe 5 minutes from going live. I watched a couple of different YouTubers, Joe, I think, and um, Holy Roller, Brian from Holy Roller, come on live while I was on my 15-20 minute drive from the sticks to make it to the CEG dealer school. And by the way, so let's go into the CEG dealer school. So there's the whole story, and I'm sure most of you have heard it by now, that the Casino Quest has now moved into the new CEG dealer school location. A whole bunch of crazy stuff happened with their lease at the mall, and there was basically a deal that they had to refuse. It didn't work out the way that it was supposed to work out, and so they overnight, literally the week prior, moved the Casino Quest store and everything in it over to a room inside the CEG dealer school in their still relatively new location, which is sort of across and down the street from Palace Station. Literally almost within walking distance of Palace Station. So they had there was still merchandise kind of everywhere. They were still kind of trying to figure out the configuration they were going to set the room up in. And so that ended up being the room that we were in. And so some of the problems we had last year with the audio overbleed from other people being in the room because they were open for business and still had customers paying for learning how to play and all the different table games turned out to be the case again this year just because of those circumstances. But absolutely still fortunate to have that space, great space. And as a benefit, I got to see the CEG dealer school, which I think they're in the midst of rebranding the Casino Training Center with a new logo and everything. I will let the CEG and Casino Quest crew expound on that because I'm sure they've got videos coming out on that and content and so on. But awesome to see huge room with all of the different table games, basically ready to train hundreds of dealers, literally hundreds of dealers over the next however long to get ready to go for working in the casinos in Vegas. And so that was really neat to see, and also neat to see their new location. It is a very nice facility. It's not right on the strip, not too far away. It would probably be about a 10 to 15 minute, not very expensive Uber ride, depending on the time of day. And so I know most of their clientele comes from finding them online and the YouTube channel. So those folks are pretty dedicated. And so I have great faith that they will still succeed in the location that they're in, doing what they do, especially with both things. The benefit, as I think Mark the Point or maybe Holy Roller mentioned in one of their streams, is that before, if you went to Casino Quest and you wanted to see David or you wanted to see Alex, the answer you would often get is, oh, they're at the school, and you missed them because they were at the school. Well, now those are both in the same place, and so they're right there. So you get the opportunity to meet them as they're there most of the time anyway. So pretty cool to see that whole venue and everything. So as I said, walked in right as the show was beginning for the day, and popped on and did a little live myself just to get some of my viewers and subscribers over there to participate. And then what commenced next was a plethora of great, awesome content, crazy heck of a lineup for the next 2 days. John from ProCraps and CGTV really knocked it out of the park this year with the lineup. Just a who's who of craps and gambling for that matter, from Garrison to Bo Parker, to Michael Shackerford, the person from marketing at Ellis Island, and just the whole slew of other folks. David gave 2 great segments, and just if you didn't catch it live or you haven't gone back and watched it, well worth going back and watching all the content that was created over those 2 days. If you have to take it in pieces, and I really hope John either re-edits some of that stuff or goes back and marks does the timestamps so you can kind of jump through and find the different pieces of the the different elements of who was speaking when and all that stuff, just to make it easier to skip back to something. I personally, I personally will be going back and watching some of that because in the room itself, we weren't actually able to hear some of the, especially the first day, we weren't able to hear some of the content going on because the table was there. They were on this side of the table. You guys had all the viewpoint and the microphones, but with all the background noise and everything else going, we couldn't really hear the guest as well unless we went around the corner and got right up next to the table. And there was kind of limited space over there for maybe 3 or 4 people to do that. I think I spent most of the second day kind of on that end of the table because the guests were so interesting and I really didn't want to miss it. And I didn't want to have to go back and watch it again. My time is limited. So, one of the reasons I came there was to be there in person for that type of stuff. So, and support and everything else. And so I spent, most of the second day right up on the table. I think we ran pretty late on the first night on Saturday. And I really didn't expect it to go that long. I think it was on the schedule to be that long, but I just didn't register in my mind. And so at the time change and everything, I was pretty well thrown off. But after we shut everything down the first day, we all collectively decided to go to Sunset Station. Ryan from Mark the Point had a crapless table reserved for videoing. And it was originally supposed to be a $10 table, but it turned out they switched it to a $15 table. Either way, we all went over there to support and just to play together. That was kind of the place we decided to all go. And so we did that, and everybody stopped and grabbed something to eat on the way. It had been a long day. We had some pizza for lunch and pastries for breakfast, but it had still been a long day. So everybody was pretty hungry, but also eager to get on the tables and play. And so everybody grabbed, I think, burgers on the way there. And I myself got to go to Fat Burger in Palace Station. I started out life in Vegas as an adult. My first duty station in the Air Force was Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. And Fat Burger was, I think, just becoming a thing. And you don't really find them anywhere that I know of except for Vegas. And so it had literally been 25 plus years, approaching 30 years. I'm going to date myself here since I had Fat Burger. And I used to love Fat Burger when I was there as a very young, much thinner man. And excuse me. So getting to eat Fat Burger was exactly the way I remembered it. It was pretty awesome. I'm a foodie, if you guys didn't know. So being able to have myself a Fat Burger after almost 30 years was pretty awesome. Little side bonus there. So got done with dinner, wandered back over to find or to re-find Mark the Point. I had already been over there, and as he was setting up and everything, and it wasn't quite ready to go. And Jen and Holy Roller and the rest of the crew were still making their way over. I think I beat them there because I was in a separate rental car. And so I wandered back over and passed a $10 table in the opposite corner of the pit and was like, oh, hey, there's a $10 table. And no longer did I say that. Then I bumped into Jen and she's like, hey, there's a $10 table over there. And so by this time, Ryan from Mark the Point had already started shooting his content. And I think that table was already pretty full with folks. And so the rest of us jumped over to the $10 table and basically took over the $10 table for the next 4 or so hours. It started off really well. I bought in for 200, and the strategy that I've kind of had in mind for this trip, I normally play some sort of 6, 7, 8, or whatever the current strategy either I'm working on or is kind of hot in the community. I like to try those out in person. And then my default is just some sort of 6, 7, 8. Jeremy's favorite strategy, which is just Jeremy from Color Up, his favorite strategy, which is just really a 6, 7, 8, or some variation of the 6, 7, 8. Or I will play, if I'm getting low, I'll play just one number, and if it hits, then I'll build back up and go from there. But uh, lately, what I've been trying to do is go a little bigger than I have in the past, and so I've been trying to get to work 44 inside. And I know most of you, the 44 inside or whatever variation scale wise of that is normal for you. But for me, as a low roller, that's kind of a big deal. If I buy in for $100 on a table, 44 inside is half my bankroll. And so for me to go out there for 44 is a big deal and a lot of risk if I'm not trying to lose anything. So what I will usually do is start off with a 6, 7, 8, or one or two numbers. I'll watch what's hitting, who's shooting, if I know them or not, and build up to a profit, and then take that profit once I get to 44 or over and play that profit. And so I literally stood right next to Holy Roller, and he and I think he bought in for about the same amount as I did. I bought in, like I said, I bought in for 200, and he and I just had competing racks the whole time. His rack would like go down and then back up, and mine would kind of stay the same and then go down a little bit and go back up and come up further than that. And I would go out with 44 and it would get whacked, and I always start over. And but either way, a lot of fun. And we all just stood there and chatted. I had Dice Dr. Dan to my left, and eventually Ryan from Mark the Point, after he finished shooting, came over and took the hook and bought in for a fairly large amount in my terms. And we all played. On the other end was Jen and John from ProCraps and Ian and a couple other of our folks that I can't remember, mixed in with some folks that were just normal Vegas tourists playing on the tables. And everything was pretty well except for one dealer. It is a break-in casino, as most station casinos are. And this young man who was, I think, on first base just had to be his second day. And he could not get it. And so Dice Dr. Dan was shooting, and it was taking forever for the dice to come back down to his end of the table and him to get the dice. And these guys are all down here making these bets, all complicated bets, and putting all these things up. And this poor kid is just, I look at him and he's literally sweating, dealing it, and just struggling hard. And I'm like, what are you guys doing down there? And Ian finally walks around. He's like, it's not us, man. It's not us. It's the dealer. And I started watching the dealer a little more. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, we just gave him 44 inside. He didn't know what to do with it. He was lost. You know, he was just struggling. We gave him 2 green chips, and he could not figure out 44 inside for those 2 green chips, which is ironic because the next day, David kind of went into a long bit about green dealers, and that was one of his scenarios. I think he outlined was like, some dealers can't figure out 44 inside with 2 green chips, you know. And so it was exactly that. And I think maybe one shooter or so after, they went ahead and switched him out, and I think they went ahead and put him on the stick over on the roll-a-win table. And then later I saw him move to, but he never came back to our table. They moved him to the just regular easy bet table where he didn't have to think too much, took some of that pressure off of him. And the pit boss kind of shouted at him after that, I noticed. The pit boss did come over while all that craziness was going on, and eventually helped him out. So that sped things up a little bit. But then they eventually took him off the table and moved him over. They didn't rotate him around ours, thankfully. So, but that happens, you know, especially breaking casinos. That's just something you got to get used to. So, oh yeah, Joe was at Stick Left 1. Yeah, you're over there on the other side of Holy Roller. And so everybody had pretty decent rolls at first. Dan had a good roll or two, I think, as it came around. When the dice weren't at, they had already passed me when we first got there, so it took a while for the dice to come back to me. And I kind of remember having to like hold off so that I would not be stuck with no money to bet, having lost a couple rounds on people before me. So I sort of held off and just made sure I betted to be able to shoot the dice, because it was one of those where you had to have action on the previous shooter to be able to shoot the dice. So just made sure I had action, and when Holy Roller was shooting, and then we went from there. Joe had some great rolls. Brian from Holy Roller had some good rolls, and at least I say at first we all had pretty good rolls. I think I was around a 10 roller, and then I think all it did was sort of recover me a little bit. Dan again had some good rolls. Dan had this really marathon long roll. He only hit the 7 once in the middle, and it was a come out. And so it kept going, but the roll was like all over the place. And I was just trying to play at that point the 6 and 8, and he wasn't getting any repeaters off of it. So awesome roll. I think he almost hit the ATS on it, but eventually it would have been great to just have everything across, because there were a couple of repeaters in there that I remember. But one of those long rolls that John talks about here and there, that what would you do with it? That kind of thing. We all want repeaters. We don't always get the repeaters we want. So let's see. About halfway, maybe a little after halfway through, the table went ice cold. And I think after 2 rounds of fairly short rolls, we all threw in the towel and gave up and decided it was time to either go somewhere else or go back to the room. And so that's what we did. I had been up a little bit. Oh yeah, Mark the Point had been over there rolling in the corner, and I had been up enough to go 44 inside, and I went 44 inside, got my 2 hits, started working my way back up, and I had maybe 3 or 4 numbers pressed up. And I had my win goal in my head, and I look at my rack, and I'm like, oh, your buy-in is there. We should see what's on the table, and we may be at win goal. And so as I'm thinking that, action's going on down here with everybody getting their bets in. I had already made my press for that move, and our dealer was kind of done. And I'm looking at the table, trying to real quick do the math on how much I got sitting on the table. And before I could say or think to say, turn me off, they passed the dice. They pushed the dice out. And I'm still sitting there in brain lock. And sure enough, 7 out. And then as they're collecting the money, I'm able to finish the math in my head real quick. And sure enough, had I regressed everything and pulled down all of it, I would have been at win goal and been done for the night, and maybe the trip at that point. Although we had another potential night of playing to do. But that's how it goes, So probably, I would say, 60 or 70 bucks out there on the table. I can't remember exactly right now, but I just know that when I did the math and then did it on my calculator to figure out, oh yeah, that was win goal, and there it went. And kind of it went south from there. And so I had waited past a couple of the touristy shooters in order to wait for people that I had seen shoot before. Most of our crew was doing pretty well. And guys, I'm sorry if I'm not reading the chat, but I'm trying to get through this as fast as I can. I'll go back to the chat and answer if anybody's got questions later. But waited for our folks to shoot, and played a little bigger on them, took some risks, and went down. Anyway, I cashed out for 50 bucks. And so I lost, just a little over 50 bucks. I lost about 150 on that roll. I had only lost $20 or $30 the day before between 2 different places. And so that being it, and that being the end of the night, I wasn't planning on playing much anymore after that. But, and there's always a but, we left there, and I took Jen and some other folks. I had to transition from where Sunset Station is over to Durango, goes across the strip, and they were all going down to the strip. And since I had a rental car, I gave everybody a ride and dropped them off. It was supposed to be at Paris, but with all the construction going on for Formula One, I think all we could get into, or between that and me making wrong turns, was Planet Hollywood, which is still pretty close. So I dropped them off at Planet Hollywood, and off they went, and I went back to Durango. And made it back to Durango, had my backpack on my back. Of course, about some of the other folks who had been over at the $15 crapless table came over, and our table was pretty full. And so midway through, they decided we're going to go to Durango and play over there. And so I knew that Patty and Ashish and those folks were going to be over there, and maybe I could still catch them. And if not, I don't know, just go to bed. And so I rolled over there and checked out the craps pit. And by now it's like 1:30, something like that in the morning. And they had already left. I passed by one or two of them, and they said, "Yeah, we had a great roll." And of course, they had a great roll. And I should have left earlier and went over there where they were. But that's always how it goes, right? The great roll is where you are not, right? That's how the stories go. And so there was a roll to win table there, and it was only $5, and it was fairly empty. There were two guys down here sort of shooting, sort of deciding whether or not to leave. And so I was like, well, it's not often you get to shoot on a table by yourself. And so I put in $20. That was all I was willing to risk at this point, since I was already down a little bit for the trip. And so $20, $5 really effectively becomes $1 at some point. And so let's go. I put in my $5, waited for those guys to finish shooting, and then commenced the shooting. I shot a total of 4 times. The first roll I had a 10 roller, and I made a little bit off of that one. And then dice came right back to me, and I was setting. Let's see. I was on the come out. I was setting 6s on top, and I think so 6-5, 6-5, basically a hard way set, and going for the 7 on the come out. And of course, wouldn't you know, while I wasn't really betting on it, I had 4 7s in a row on the come out. So I think I had maybe played on the 2 guys at the end, was down a little bit, so I was being very conservative. And those 7s recovered me back to my original buy-in, and then just a little bit up. And then from there, I was going with a 4-2, 4-1 set. And from over here in the hook down to the other hook. And there was, on the roll to win table, you've got the shooter down on the table. It says shooter 1, and you can type in your name if you are so inclined, and it'll say your name there. And right on that hook part in the corner is this bright pink label, and it fits in between. On this particular one, all the roller win tables seem to be a little different with their plexiglass, but this particular one had the extra strip of plexiglass over the top, and it was set back just, I don't know, 8 inches or so. It was a little further than I've seen before. And so I was able to throw and drop the dice right in and use that. It was bright pink in this case, position label as my target, and drop the dice right in. If I could get them just right, they would hit smack and just stand still, barely kiss the back wall, smack and stand still. And so I was going, when I shoot that set like that, I usually get 6s and 8s. And sure enough, I got a bunch of 8s to start off with, and then some 6s, and then thick 4s and 9s, 1 or 2 5s and 10s, but mostly 6s and 8s. And so on the 20 roller, I worked my way up to double what I bought in for, so just over 50. And that roll ended, and like I really had to go to the restroom, and I still needed to drop my backpack off. So I was like, okay, I'm going to head up to the room, take a little break, head up to the room, drop that off. I'll come back down and see how it's going. And so when I did, there was a girl who had taken up the spot on the opposite hook that I'd been shooting to, and she started shooting. And I go upstairs, I do my business, put my bag away, freshen my face up a little bit, brush my teeth because we'd been all day, and I'm sure we all had bad breath at that point, and freshen up and then head back downstairs. And that was probably 10 or 15 minutes. And I come back down, and she's still shooting. And I look at the roll count, and it's like 20 something. And I'm like, holy smokes. And so I looked down in the other end. I'm like, "You're doing pretty good." She's like, "Yeah, the last time I rolled, which was before I had come up, I guess she'd been on the table before. I rolled a 15." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And so I'm like, 15, all right. So I put my ticket back in, and I decided she had a 15 before. She's got to be pretty close to being done. I'll just wait and wait for her to finish shooting, and I'll get back on it, and I'll get to shoot again fairly close back to back. Wouldn't you know, she went 40 rolls. And I didn't, and she was hitting everything with back to back sixes and eights. Of course, everything, the stuff that I would always play. A few fours back to back. Nice, a decent amount of repeaters. And I wish there was a roll tracker like we have on Crapsy, because the roll distribution would have been almost perfect minus the sevens. And yeah, she went 40 rolls, hit the small, and all she had left for the tall was the 12, or the all was the 12. And she just didn't hit that 12. She had the 10 also left for a little while, and she got that around roll 36. And I kind of knew it had to be coming right after that. But I I put, I think she hit the 4 a few times close together. And so I put something on the 4, and she never hit the 4 again. And so that was that. I never won anything on her, but I missed a whole really great 40 roller that had all the elements of everything I've been playing lately, and missed out on making a good win just because I was waiting to shoot myself, you know. And so after that, I had another 10 roll, and did okay on that. Picked up a little bit on that, and then dice came right back to me. She had finished and decided to leave. Good decision. If you have a nice long roll like that, chances are you're not going to have another one right after. So she left, and I rolled again, and I rolled a 4. I rolled point, another number I wasn't on, and 7 out. And I was up. I wasn't up 44 inside, but I was up for a decent amount. So I lost back some of what I had won, and ended up walking at I think 29. So not bad. 2 hours is what that took between my play and my break and her play, and getting to see a 40 roller and the excitement with that. And I looked down, and I'm like, I hope you were pressing. You know? And I'm not even sure she knew what that meant, but she was just had a smile on her face, and was just, she was setting, but not really. Her toss wasn't very structured or anything. She was at least setting the dice, and doing kind of the same thing I was, kind of throwing into my hook. And it was just nice to see that 40 roller. You know, you always get a story. That's probably my best story. Of course, nobody from our crew was here for this. So I had to take a picture of the of the roll count on the roll to win table before I left. And then, you know, I rolled my 4 rolls, and I was like, that's it, I'm done. By now it's 2:30 morning. It's time to get some sleep. And so I headed back to the room, and crashed for the night. And got up the next morning. We started a little bit later the next morning. So, and I knew Craps Chat was going to be on. I didn't know the format for it, or not Craps Chat, but the coffee run was going to be the first thing on. So I didn't know the format was going to be all of us. And so I kind of strategically decided I was going to be late. And then I knew I could watch on my phone on my way in. And sure enough, everybody told their stories, and I didn't get to tell my story because I showed up late and missed the coffee run with John, with all of the folks who'd been there the night before together playing and everything. But everybody else did a pretty good recounting of what had happened, and the darkness of the table as it turned about halfway through, and pretty fun all around. And so we went the whole day, and again finished a pretty late night. And then I realized, for me, when I fly, I absolutely have to check in exactly 24 hours prior, because he who checks in first is he who gets a seat first when it comes to standby. And as we're wrapping up, I realized, oh crap, I forgot to check in last night at 1:30. I was scheduled for the red eye coming back east at 1:30 in the morning. And because we were all playing and having fun, I forgot to check in at 1:30 in the morning. And so I jumped on and checked in real quick, and I was like number 8. And I was the last, of course, the last check in, and number 8. And this flight was only showing like 4 or 5 seats available. And the previous red eye to it was in the same boat. And so I'm like, oh gosh, of all the things you shouldn't forget, especially trying to get out of Vegas on a Sunday, even when you have tickets, can be fun. In the summertime, they do these heat embargoes so that the aircraft can take off because it's so hot. Not such a big problem at night, but during the day, it can be crazy, even when you have paid for tickets to get out of Vegas on a Sunday or a Monday. And so I'm like, great. So I started looking at my other options on the app that we use to book flights, and considered everything. And everything just kept coming back to still, I was already scheduled to go through Dallas. So everything kept coming back to going through Dallas. And so everybody was talking about where we're going to go next. And they had all decided to go over to Paris. And so I'm like, I have to figure this out before I can really do anything. I'll meet you guys over there. And so proceeded to take the strip down to get there instead of the freeway, which was a kind of a terrible idea traffic wise, but also a good idea time wise, because as soon as I passed the concert venue, which was starting to wrap up and let out, it was gridlock all the way down the strip from the Sahara pretty much to the Wynn. And so if it hadn't been gridlocked, I wouldn't be able to sit there on my phone in traffic and figure out my options for flying and everything. But I would have gotten where I was going faster. But because of that, I figured out what to do, which meant rescheduling my flight to the earlier flight and changing the priority. We only get so many higher priority flights a year, and I still had some left, and we're close to the end of the year. So I decided on the spot, go ahead and change my priority, which bumped me up a little bit and gave me better chances of getting on the earlier red-eye flight. And also meant that I had to go to the airport earlier, and I really wasn't going to get a lot of time to go play with everybody or anything like that. So I figured I'll just go eat. So I hit Tacos El Gordo, which is one of my favorite places on the strip, right across from Resorts World. Had myself some nice, great street tacos that they have there while I sat there and finished rebooking my flight, and hopped in the car and had just enough time to head through the crazy F1 traffic. So the closer you get to the race course on the backside where Koval is, the crazier it gets with all the construction, and getting around starts to become a big challenge. And Google Maps doesn't have all the road closures squared away. So it kept trying to have us turn right where you couldn't turn right anymore, all these crazy things. So I made it to, at some point, Jen texted me and let me know that they had all moved from Paris to Planet Hollywood because the table limits at Paris were too high for everybody to play. And so I knew how to get there. And so made my way to Planet Hollywood, parked in the garage, and zipped over just to say hey and bye to everybody in the crew, and sort of catch some of their play. About half of the group was over on the actual table, and the other half was on the stadium craps, which has been greatly expanded. I did a short little video back, I think in January, when they were moving that table and setting it up for more positions, and got this cool like under the table shot of the computer hardware and stuff that's kind of resides under the table to run everything. And sure enough, that's now, it's gone from 12 spots around that stadium table to 18 spots around that table. So it takes a little bit longer if you're up at one of those spots to get around to shoot. But I think way more fun because you got more people, and it's literally like a massive craps table, but not with all the people and everybody. The community aspect of it gets going really well. And that's one of the things I like about stadium craps. Plus, that table's only about a foot or so longer than this table, and it's actually felted instead of being a plexiglass surface like the roll to win tables. So I love that table. You shoot from straight out on it, and I shoot from straight out a lot, and I tend to do okay when I shoot from straight out. So it's like my dream table. It's almost like the one I have here at home. And so I didn't get to play. I didn't have time to. I was hard watching the clock, and already had the directions to the rental car return center up on my phone. And that. I said bye to everybody and then proceeded to try and find my way back to the parking garage, and ended up going the long way through the Miracle Mile shops. Some show had just let out, and so like everyone and their mother was leaving this show, and just totally in my way as I'm trying to get through this traffic jam of people just to get back to the car. And then of course the escalator to the parking garage was broke, so everybody, it was like 100 people waiting on the elevator, and somehow I made it on the elevator and then found my car, and off to the airport I went to the rental car center, dropped off, made it to the airport through TSA. It was probably the fastest TSA check through I have. I pre-checked, so it was only like one family in front of me on the little shuttle train. Walked through my gate and up to the counter, and they had my ticket, and then I got on the plane. And so it was, everything worked out, and then it just became making my second flight the next morning, which I also made that one and made it all the way home as originally planned, a little bit earlier than I had originally planned, and then had to go get my wife, who was also traveling. We were actually almost on that same second flight together, but because I was a higher priority, I bumped my wife off the flight, and then had the opportunity to like give her my seat, but I was already boarded at that point, and I'm sure I'll never hear it from her, or I'll never stop hearing from her how I should have given her my seat. But just the way things were working out, there was a couple of people in between us, and if I had given her my seat earlier, it would have gone to the next person instead of her. She was way in the last in line, and so it worked out. So she went to a different airport about an hour away from here. Fortunately, we have an airport an hour either direction, plus our own airport, and so we have a lot of options for getting home when it comes down to flights and stuff. But I had to go and drive and get her after having been up for pretty much 24 hours, because even though it was a red eye, I ended up with the middle seat on both flights. Didn't sleep that well on either flight, and it was a rough Monday, we'll say, getting home. And so finally made it home, and overall, great time. I had a lot of fun. The last thing I went to meetup wise was DiceCon, which was also a lot of fun. Way more people, and a lot of whom I've met before, having been to other events and stuff before. But this one was some people that I hadn't met and had been wanting to meet, and some people that had already met, and a much smaller crowd, so to speak. And we were able to have a lot more conversations with each other and together, and experience the whole thing, and then play together, and not the table not be overloaded. And even though I only got to play like a couple of times, that was really fun, and I really enjoyed that, and perfect for just a quick weekend. And then on top of that, the icing on the cake is we got to raise a nice amount of money so far, 20K and counting, for an awesome charity to help veterans with PTSD have a dog. And I, being a former dog handler myself of military working dogs, kind of know how that all goes. And so near and dear to my heart in multiple directions. So felt really great to be able to be part of that, and contribute and be on a couple of the segments and talk and just be myself, and meet the people that were there and help out in the ways that I could and participate. And that was awesome. So next year, if you guys get a chance, don't miss it. If you're a diehard, definitely you should be one of the people who are there. Hopefully you get a slightly bigger venue next year, and we can accommodate more people. I think that might happen, to where a lot of folks see how great this was this year and may show up and stuff. So, but if you get a chance to volunteer, absolutely volunteer. I think you probably heard the story of how everybody else ended up with comp rooms through circumstances, and Jen helping out and everything. And so overall, awesome event. And I had a really great time, and I think a success, though maybe not as much as a success as John wanted it to be. To me, still a pretty good amount. I can't think of any other event where we could raise 20K in 2 days and still be hopefully raising more between now and Veterans Day. So if you would like to go still donate, it's open. Just go crapsforthecure.com and you can still donate. It won't close until Veterans Day. There's still plenty of things, auction items on there that you can bid on. Some really awesome stuff. I won't go into all of those because you can see them on the website. And John covers them pretty well. If you go back and watch the content, they're all covered pretty well. But please go donate and bid on some of those items, and let's get over that $25,000 mark so we can name the next dog as well as we did the last one. So let me go through the chat and see what I got here. So. Okay, so hello, Joe. And we've got some folks out here I don't know, but hey, Alan. Alan did an awesome thing, but that story's been covered, so I won't tell it again. But awesome donation there. Yep, very nice to meet you as well. And Joe, let's see, he had a 14 roller. Yeah, he did. Joe, you had a 14 roller on your second shot. So, like I said in the beginning, the first half was pretty cool, awesome. We all did pretty well, and then it kind of went to the table went dark. So, it turned out to be really good, and I'm really sad that I had to go and catch the flight. And apparently, the stories I've heard so far from the Planet Hollywood and the stadium were pretty good. John did a great job on Tuesday morning, I think it was, of recounting, but. This year, definitely I have to pick up. I will tell you one thing that this trip did for me is I have been, for me, my busiest time of the year has been this past few months. I deal with government budgeting and stuff for the Air Force. And of course, towards the end of the year, everything gets super busy. So I've been super busy work-wise, spending more money than I normally get, we'll say, without going into too much detail. But I haven't consumed as much content and kept up with everybody's channel as much as I had in the past. And quite honestly, was getting a little bit burned out on this game, and having not had great success over the last couple of trips, just kind of muddling on, breaking even, trying things and them not working and so on. And I was kind of getting a little burnout. But this trip has really sort of rejuvenated me and put a little spark back into me and really make me want to get on some more content. I've had some ideas for content bubbling around in my head. As you guys, if you watch this segment with all of the YouTubers, I say I'm still trying to find my niche for what my channel is going to be about and sort of focus on. And I think I kind of have two things that I want to focus on now. So hopefully, I don't want to give them away because let's be honest, people will steal your ideas if you give them to them. So I don't want to. I'll tell you one of them, and I'll keep the other one to myself and let you see it when my content comes out. But we'll say it has to do with starting, with beginning, and then the other is the travel part. I really want to do more travel content, and like I said, I have traveled quite a bit, but there's been a few trips, and I used to take my little mini layout. If you guys haven't seen it, go watch the video. I used to take some type of mini layout and chips with me everywhere. And at TSA, for some reason, that little chip box, they like to take a look at it every time it goes through. And it's probably the metal inside the discs or something that they just don't know what the hell it is. So that bag always gets searched. And I got kind of tired of that being searched every time it goes through the machine. And so I stopped carrying the layout and the chips with me on a few trips this summer. And then missed the opportunity to do some quick content while I was there, because I like to go places that are unique and maybe have a cool view in the background, and then play craps and maybe do a live stream or maybe do a video and play craps and really show you can play craps anywhere if you have the right stuff. And it should be like any other game. It should be like any other table game. Once you know it and understand it and you have the right equipment, pieces and parts, you should be able to play it pretty much anywhere, and without it being crapsy. I had wanted to do a crapsy for this, but it looks like I don't have. Let me see if there's anybody waiting. Yeah, so I'm going to skip that. I ended up going probably a little longer than I wanted to here, and I've got somewhere I got to be. I got a hard stop. So thank you guys all for watching, and if you're watching this on the replay, thank you as well for watching. But overall, I had a great time, and hope to do it again next year. And thanks to John and all the folks who showed up and provided content, all the folks who attended as well and helped out. Everything went quite well. And I picked up a few new chips. I won't go through all those, but I picked up a few new chips from different casinos and other folks in the community, different YouTubers and stuff. Got the newer version of their chips, just like I have a newer version of mine. And so gained some stuff for my collection and some awesome stories. So thank you guys for watching, and thanks for watching Great Craps.